Hey everyone, it's Kazra. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of work on the H2. It's finally coming up to 500 miles, so it's getting time for the first oil change. To start with, we're going to have to move the other bike, treble R. So we'll go ahead and get that pulled out and we'll come back as soon as that's done. All right, now that we got treble out the way, we can go ahead and start talking about the kind of tools we're gonna need. Start off with, we're only gonna really need 2 sockets and a ratchet. So our first socket is gonna be an 8mm. Let me see if I can make that a little bit easier to see. An 8mm. I got the long one with a rounded tip. You don't really need that. You can just get a nice short one. And then the other socket, this one's going to be for the fill, is going to be a 10mm. So 8mm for the drain, 10mm for the fill, and then a ratchet. If you're not already familiar with the bike and where those are located, you got the drain is going to be on the side that's leaning downwards. It's going to be right here in the corner. You can kind of see it poking its head out right there. And then the fill, we're gonna have to circle around to the other side. You got the fill right over here. So the first things first, before we go ahead and drain and fill the oil, the service manual does state to start the vehicle and then let it run until warmed up before draining the oil. So we're just gonna go ahead and turn it on and get ready to drain the oil. All right, now that we got the other bike out the way and we've got the oil pan and funnel set down right over here ready to go, we can go ahead and get started with the cold start. Get this bike running, warmed up, ready for the oil change. So let's go ahead and start her up. All right, now to get started on the oil change. We got the drain pan over here, ready to go ahead and start draining all the oil out. Before we do that though, we're gonna go ahead and crack this fill plug and make sure that it's nice and loose. I already cracked it loose, but just to make sure, you know, just make sure that's nice and loose. Go ahead and set that aside. Now that we have the drain plug out, we'll go ahead and get to cracking the fill. Or not the fill, I'm sorry, the drain. Alright, so now we got the socket for this one. This one's kind of hard to do one-handed, but you get the idea. I'll go ahead and crack it loose and we'll come back once we're draining. Actually, might be able to do this. Let's see. There we go. Now you can kind of see what I'm doing there. Alright, yeah. All right, so now while that's draining, we can go ahead and give this drain plug a nice little wipe down. Still looks amazing. And we'll be right back once it's done draining. All right, I didn't record me moving the drain pan out of there, but we're gonna go ahead and tighten this drain bolt back down. It gets tightened down to 25 Newton meters, or I think it was 15 foot-pounds. Whatever 25 Newton meters in foot-pounds. So we'll just go ahead and tighten this, and let me see if I can just set this down. There we go. So you guys can just go ahead and watch. All right, nice and tight. Cool. Now that we're done with the drain side, we'll go ahead and get to filling this thing up. All right, let's go ahead and get our funnel in here. That's not gonna stay. Oh. So these things will take generally 3.5 quarts without the oil being removed, or the filter. If you remove the filter, it takes about 4 quarts, and then if the engine is completely dry, it takes about 5 quarts. That being said, there's a couple of different types of oil you can run on these. Manufacturer recommends 1040, but it also says to take into consideration atmospheric conditions, which basically means that if the temperature is too hot or too cold, adjust the oil you're using. 1040 is good to -10 degrees up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. And for down here in Florida, that's generally okay. I'm just going to be using some 1040. In case you guys are somewhere else and you guys see above, 105 degree heat regularly, then you would definitely start to move on to a 1050 weight oil. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and start filling this up. And we'll start with the first quart of 1040. checked and we are just about a little bit shy of full. So I'm just gonna top it off a little bit more and we'll go ahead and put the plug back in it and call that good. All right, that's the final bottle. Now let's go ahead and put this drain bolt back on. Now this drain bolt is going to be torqued to 10 Newton meters. For all of those that wondering about tightening specs, it's all in the details, right? Details, details, details. So we'll break out the multimeter, or not the multimeter, but the brush. And we'll be sending it to 10 Newton meters. Let's go ahead and set this in here. Nice and tight. Perfect. Now that we're all done, we'll go ahead and give it a test fire. See what's rolling. All right. Just go ahead and double check for leaks. Make sure we give it a nice little wipe down here. No signs of oil. Perfect, perfect. Just clean it off. Good. All right. Key on.